Mike here from Movie Reviews by South of Normal, coming to you today to talk about Better Call Saul series finale, season 6, episode 12. 12. That's 10 and 2. In this episode, we see the final days of Saul Goodman play out, where he's going, what the consequences are, what his choices are. We see him, and this is huge spoilers, so anyone who hasn't watched it yet that's watching this first, spoilers, turn the channel now. But, okay, I gave you ample time. But we see him call, forget his name, he was the DA he always worked with the headpiece, eating the Fritos, and he sees him in the bathroom all the time, always cutting deals with him. He calls him to be his lawyer. Because he gets caught. That old woman presses the life alert button, calls him. You think he's going to get away with it, and he spills his diamonds all over the trash, and he gets caught. He gets brought in, and we watch him work his Jimmy McGill, Saul Goodman magic, and cuts this deal with the feds where he's like, instead of getting like life plus whatever amount of years was, 20 years, 80 years, I can't remember. He gets down there, he's like 7 years in prison. That's all you got to do. And he's like, yes, you can see it. He's like, working his charm, working his magic. And then the more time he spends in, the more he has to think. He gets all these memories coming back. And we see the one with him and Mike talking about time machines. That's where we start. Like, we're talking about time machines. If you could go back and change anything, what would you do? And Mike talks about how I'd go back to when I took my first bribe and not take it. And Saul's like, I'd go back and give $1 million to Berkshire Hathaway. That way I could be a trillionaire. Like, that's where his mind is. It's just money, 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 money. And the more it gets revealed, the more that comes up. He has this whole story about when Walt and Jesse kidnap him and bring him to the desert, and then how he did everything out of fear for his life, not because he was aiding and abetting Walter White, but he was doing it. It's a whole shtick to make the jury, like, that's what he says. I don't need to convince the whole jury, just one, and your case is shot. You've never lost a case. Like, he's playing to the ego of this guy, this prosecutor, and it works. And it's like you see the magic that he had as a lawyer because of the con manness and the lawyer combined is just, you saw the magic. And then Kim gets brought up because Jimmy tries to play another card to get even more time off and learns that Kim turned herself in. Now she's facing all this civil litigation and damage. And he's like, you see the wheels churning. You don't know what he's doing. And all of a sudden he's having Kim come to the courthouse. You think he's going to like drop some bombshell on her because of how the last thing you see of him is like they're fighting. So maybe he's going to be a vindictive dick, but he doesn't. He has the memory of him and Chuck, and Chuck's like the last few lines is, it's never too late to change your path. Like, never too late to change your path. I mean, Chuck was more like, you think he's like, I don't want you to be a lawyer. Get the hell out of here, based on their relationship. There was a moment, and I'm trying to remember it now. I wish I wrote it down. Sorry. Between Jimmy and Chuck, where Jimmy says something, and you see Chuck's face. You just like, you see it in his face, like, I'll have to put it in the comments when I look it up. But then that scene between Jimmy and Chuck was very, very telling, because Chuck literally says, you don't got to do this. Stop helping me. Basically, he's like, stop. You don't got to do this. And Jimmy's like, oh, that's what it was. See, I got there. He's like, you're my brother. You do the same for me. And you see Chuck's face like, no, I wouldn't. That little moment, you're just like, it tells their relationship in 2 seconds. But this episode it's bittersweet because the show's over. I love this show so much. It's so well written. I had some faults with it here and there. This episode, Saul goes to prison for 80-something years, shorter with good behavior, is like one of the last lines spoken. You don't want him to go to prison. You want him to keep getting away with it, in a sense. I'm really glad they didn't kill him. Like Walter in Breaking Bad, Walter White had to die. That was a no-brainer. And he died his way. Like he was either going to die of cancer or he was going to get put in a barrel like all his other friends. And I didn't want the latter. I didn't want him to die from cancer. Like he was such a shitbag. He needed to die, but he died on his terms, so it was okay. And I had a problem with how Howard was killed. It played out in the long run. Yes, it kind of played out. I didn't like it at the time. Still good writing. Like I can disagree with their choice and it'd still be good writing. But this seems like a fitting end for Saul. It's like he finally has that cathartic moment where he changes his ways. Because like he tells this whole story about Walter White and being afraid and all that. And then he works his deal, and then he gets up in court, and he starts telling the story, and you're like, he agreed he wasn't going to do this. And then he flips it and tells the truth. He finally tells the truth. And it was his downfall. Everyone's telling him to shut up, and he's like, no. So he goes to prison, and on the way to prison, all the prisoners start chanting, "Better call Saul." And like, as much as like, you're like, wow, it's kind of shitty that that's happening because like that's who you're associated with. You can see it in his face, like, I'm someone to these people. It's what I've wanted my entirety is to be someone to somebody, and here I am. But the black and white filming was so good. Like, so I liked it so much, especially in the scene where Kim visits Jimmy in prison, like the final moments of the show, because it's not all black and white. If you notice, the cigarette tip is full color. And to me, that's like it's the symbology in that of like, yeah, there's still a flame between us. There's still this little bit that we can nurse between us. Just so I was like, I needed that. Because I didn't like the fact that they were screaming and yelling and hating each other. Despite being terrible for each other, I didn't like that like storyline plot. I wanted them to be together. I wanted to be getting on some island somewhere, living it up, getting away with it. But that had been bad writing. That's why I'm not a writer at the moment. That's just my downfall, is because I make bad choices. But there's that little bit of like they're sharing this cigarette like they used to, and you get the only bit of color is the cherry on the end of the cigarette. It's like that gives me hope. Like they'll be fine somehow, some way. They'll be fine. Jimmy's in prison. Kim's in her own prison of sorts, but she became a legal age. She's going back to the law. She's kind of rekindling things. Like it was just the hope there, and that was like it. You see them leaving. You see her leaving and Jimmy leaving, giving her the old finger guns like Kim used to give him. But cinematically, this movie, it was shot so well. This story was told beautifully. I can't find any faults in the episode. It was over an hour. It was probably like hour 15, I think was the runtime, maybe a little less. Check it out. Watch this whole series and watch this episode. Like, I'm going to have to watch this episode again because there was probably so much I missed. Like his hubris is what brought him down. His desire to be Saul Goodman's what brought him down. And when he finally decided, I'm Jimmy McGill, that's when like he finally decided, I am Jimmy McGill. Like after all these years of being Saul Goodman, having the life he thought he wanted and it going to shit. Now he's in prison as Jimmy McGill. The penance he needed to pay from being Slippin' Jimmy and then Saul, he's finally caught up to him. And it was just so it was a great end to a great show. The episode is well worth a watch. It was done almost flawlessly. I can't nitpick it. The flashbacks, like the storytelling with the flashbacks and the time machine and all like just the characters and how they all react and how it took Jimmy so long to realize that he's not Saul, he's Jimmy, and tell the truth. It's what you need to do to right the ship for everyone. So great ending to a great show. Check it out wherever you can stream it. Well worth it. Thanks for tuning in. You guys are awesome.